Hey, it's Soul, and welcome to Warcraft Weekly, the show that celebrates the end of Shadowlands, or at least it's the beginning of the end. You can help us out by pressing the like button and subscribing for more of our copium-filled content. In today's weekly, we're going to go over this here roadmap of what is going to happen over the next several weeks while we work our way towards the Dragonflight expansion. And as we go down the timeline, I'll offer a bit of commentary and concerns that I have while leaving the dooming to you folks in the comments. First, throughout the weekend, at least have your Battle.net client open so you can pre-download everything that you'll need for Tuesday. Next week is going to be big with the first of 2 Dragonflight pre-expansion patches. That's right, the WoW team is going layaway by giving us the absolute minimum of what they can do right now before they totally come through on the next installment. Meaning the first few weeks of the 10.0 patch will begin with us standing around like statues, just kind of figuring out our talents and contending with whether or not to keep using LVY. Some of you might be rolling new characters because after the patch, any race can roll a mage, a priest, or a rogue. Given the time of year though, I wouldn't go off and race change until after a holiday sale begins. This is just in case you don't have a prepaid race change already tucked away. And from the looks of it, it doesn't seem like Shadowlands chromie time is going to be a thing, at least not yet. On the beta, we can see that it's kind of getting there, but not quite. But somehow I don't imagine people clamoring to level in Shadowlands chromie time. Whatever the case though, leveling is going to feel different thanks to the talent tree because you're going to get a choice of a new thing with every level, whereas before it was much less frequent, and the Winds of Wisdom buff should still be available. Also on the week of the patch, there will be the first in a series of animated shorts entitled Legacies. From the looks of it, this is going to give a bit of backstory on the Dracthyr race, the time before the aspects became the aspects, and the best part, it's free. The Sylvanas book came out like earlier this year, so I guess for now books are on cooldown. After the first patch, players can no longer aim at the rewards for being a top gladiator or dungeon running person, but you can still run keys, you can still do fated raids and PvP. Not to say that there's nothing to do. I mean, for example, I'm still going to be working on fated raid achievements with the guild if we can manage it, and I'm leaving out a lot of smaller details, but in general, this is going to be a 3-week period of nothing new to go for, just a continuation of trying to wrap up what's left with all the system changes in place. 3 weeks later, on November 15th, is when the second pre-patch patch will drop, and this is when things will start really ramping up. Okay, they'll finally start ramping up. We may have a third Legacy cinematic by this point, and the lore transition to Dragonflight will be underway, with the Dracthyr available for play in the Forbidden Reach zone. Odds are good that you have to at least own Dragonflight in order to play them, and there's no head start for people who had pre-ordered. One of the 8 Dragonflight dungeons will be available. It's the Return to Uldaman, or for some of us, what the hell is Uldaman? And the Primal Storm invasions will be active during this final 2-week period. We don't have exact specifics on the dungeon, like what difficulties are going to be available, and after the first testing of the Primal Storm events just last week, I really hope that there are substantial changes to it, especially because it's only going to be around for 2 weeks. I'm talking about adjusting the amount of experience given, because it scales with level, and making it feel reasonable to fly from one invasion point to another, and adjusting how quickly the rewards can be obtained via drop or currency, again, given that there's only a 2-week period. WoW's pre-expansion events are already an exercise in FOMO as it is. I think that the last thing players should feel is rushed to complete them right from the start. The WoW team is also starting something new and old, and that's Twitch drops. Starting on November 15th, promotional Twitch drops will be made available in World of Warcraft for, I think, the first time. I'm going to presume that anyone streaming WoW will be able to activate drops, so anyone can participate by watching their favorite streamer. So here's the crash course on Twitch drops. You just watch someone who has drops activated, they'll probably let you know, and after a set amount of time, you're given a thing. In the case of this event, we don't know what it's going to be yet, but it's safe to say that it'll be some sort of maybe fun cosmetic, like a "hey, I was here" sort of prize. As for how to set up Twitch drops, first, you need a Twitch account. Cool. Once you have that, go to your Battle.net account page, click on Connections, and you can connect your Twitch account to your Battle.net account. No worries, it's like 78% safe. You can do that now in advance, and then when it's game time, make sure that you're logged into Twitch, then head over to your favorite participating channel when they go live. Obviously, we're talking about me, and just hang out. Coffee with Soul happens Tuesdays through Thursdays, starting at 8:30 a.m. Pacific. 2 weeks on Thanksgiving later, Dragonflight will launch worldwide. Work orders will finally be testable, and 2 weeks after that, that, Season 1 of Dragonflight begins and we're all out of excuses. The question I have is whether the same Twitch drop is going to be active for a whole month, or are more drops going to be available during each of these milestones? Once we find out, you're sure to hear about it from like somewhere. The other question I have is what happened to the trash and the common transmog options? Like, it was announced, or I guess it was promised, tomato tomato, but there's no sign of it right now. Not on the PTR, not on beta, and maybe it's being held on as some weird secret surprise, or it's a last second addition, or maybe it's being pushed back. And circling back to Chromie time, I was hoping for it to be a thing during the pre-patch. I know I said earlier that folks probably don't want to dive back in there straight away, but there are some that do, or they're at least, you know, curious. Imagine being level 10, fresh from Exile's Reach and going straight to hell. Haha, good choice, champion. What makes Shadowlands a bit unique from other expansions is that it's got Threads of Fate. It's the freewheeling, do-whatever game mode that included the likes of Torghast. It's one thing to calculate experience gains through the leveling campaign. It's another thing when it's Threads of Fate. And it's another thing again when we consider the possibility of leveling up in Threads of Fate through Chromie time in Torghast, because at least leveling in Torghast was a thing. We don't know if Threads of Fate and Torghast is even going to be part of Shadowlands Chromie time, but if it is, I can see why it might not make it until launch. Torghast and Chromie time, I guess, would need a bit of a redesign to suit characters that could be as low as level 10 or 20, which could be fun, but I want the WoW team to make it fun. The pre-patch is coming soon, but the Dragonflight launch is still a month away, and Season 1 a few weeks after that, leaving plenty of room for conspiracy theories, changes, iterations, and to finally make things testable. Work orders are not, in fact, cancelled, that much I can say, after seeing NPCs inform us that they're not available at this time, and rumors are flying that they might finally be testable as soon as next week. Yeah, sure it will. Last feature to be tested, that always turns out great. On the bright side, Dracthyr players have something to celebrate, because Soar, their racial ability, has been given a few significant buffs. Its speed has been changed back to match dragon riding speed. Also, as you level up dragon riding talents, a number of them will lower the cooldown of Soar. Now combine that with the familiar Sky's racial, and by the time you've explored the Dragon Isles, Soar will have a cooldown of only 1 minute, which makes it a great ability for quick hops from place to place. There is a catch though, the bonus speed and cooldown reduction, it only works in Dragon Isles zones. Kind of a bummer, right? But it's cool to see buffs where they're going to be at least the most utilized, and that's to do sweet jumps. Some folks might have noticed camera changes to dragon riding this week that emphasize the speed gains that happen when you're using these dragon riding abilities. They're very cool, but for some, it's very disorienting. But these can be disabled using the following options to keep your character centered and reduce camera movement. In case you're having trouble finding these options though, you can use the search bar up top in the options menu and use keywords like camera and motion to easily find them. I also heard folks not liking the speed lines that you get on the screen. Unfortunately, I haven't found a way to turn those off without turning off particle effects altogether. This includes using console commands, so I'm not confident that add-ons will be able to disable this specific effect without messing with a lot of other stuff. There's one more thing that I want to bring up in this very hastily read weekly, but I also can't because I want to keep the weekly spoiler-free. I'm going to try at least talk a little bit on the broader lore surrounding this expansion and the franchise as a whole. I haven't been shy about sharing that I appreciate the moments that Warcraft has to offer, but I'm not fond of the way that they tell it using a trope called the unreliable narrator. So let's use Sargeras as an example. He obviously shanked Azeroth in its sandy parts that makes his actions, pretty evil if we look at it from a, hey, you're destroying our world sort of viewpoint. But from a different angle, thanks to some revelation, we learn that, so he's acting in desperation because of the threat that Azeroth's corruption would have on like the whole universe. So there's like, there's a bit of texture to what would have otherwise have been seen as an evil act. Suddenly though, we learn that, he's actually been manipulated by the Dreadlords all along. A character was hidden behind the scenes orchestrating events, and it turns out that there's a small window where Sargeras can be made out to be a victim. There's a coolness in learning that our heroes or villains have a more tragic backstory, but sometimes it can be infuriating to fans who crystallize their viewpoints on certain characters and then feel like their perceptions are being usurped. I'm not taking any risks by saying that the Warcraft team did not imagine the machinations of the Jailer decades ago when developing the first Warcraft RTS game. And it's my opinion, just, one opinion, but it's my opinion that they rely on the unreliable narrator a bit too much, from books to other people's perspectives and how it tries to kind of misdirect us. It's one thing to see a character turn and change, even if it turned out to be a little bit abrupt, like for example Garrosh Hellscream's story. It's another thing to see a character like Sylvanas have her actions redefined in the future, because in my head at least, I had to constantly question her every move. I don't mind twists, and it's cool to see the lore expand, but in a way, it's made me trust the story and the writing less. So, tiny spoiler alerts, the trope of the unreliable narrator is going to happen again, and it's too early to judge, but this time, what we're learning has got me excited actually, because before Warcraft started to really explore the cosmic forces that shaped its universe, there's been this shared misunderstanding that it's pretty black and white. Alliance good, Horde bad. But we've seen as early as the RTS games that that's not entirely the case. So how about light is good and void is evil? The pages have been slowly turning towards this kind of sense of understanding that the cosmic forces in Warcraft are not so easily defined. It's not just black and white. It's not even exactly gray, but we're going to see more examples of the powers at work in Dragonflight and what they see as the greater good. That's something that I can get behind during Dragonflight, because these revelations are going to be brought to light in a slightly more grounded story. Or at least the hope is that we learn more without having to engage directly with it, and by that, I mean I don't want, nor do I expect to have a seat of the Pantheon raid in this expansion. And that's the show. As you can tell, we've been sliding away from the oohs and ahs of previews to feedback, and now we're sliding again towards tips and guides. Okay, well, not survival guides, but actual helpful information to help get you by. That's why you're seeing fewer videos as of late. I'm trying to take this knowledge and information that I've been gathering and trying to turn them into something digestible that viewers can refer back to. What we know today could easily change tomorrow, so I appreciate your patience while I get out some cool leveling and prep guides, tips and tricks, and maybe mounts and other collection videos if I can get to those. For now though, let's give a shout out to our friends over on Twitch. You rock, and I hope that over the next few weeks we can get more folks to drop by and say hello. To our patrons, thank you for sticking around and welcome! We got some new and returning members like Brett, Bill, and Drax, and to you viewer, thank you so much. You made it to the end for the algorithm, and you did your part. There's a lot going down next week. Keep an eye out for the reminder video every Monday. It'll help if you were to subscribe to the channel and to like this video too. I'll see you on the other side. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.